How did Pope Pius X differ from his predecessor, Pope Leo XIII? How did his initiatives affect Catholic worship in the liturgy? Was he able to increase lay participation in the Mass? And why was his papacy hostile to independent scholarship? And why did Catholic theologians have to limit their study to the philosophy of St Thomas Aquinas? And did he found the Society of St Pius X, or SSPX? Please, we welcome interesting questions in the comments. Let us learn and reflect together. At the end of our talk, we'll discuss the sources used for this video. Please feel free to follow along in the PowerPoint script we uploaded to SlideShare, which includes illustrations. Our sister blog includes footnotes, and both include our Amazon book links. When we learned that the new American Pope chose to be named Pope Leo XIV, signaling his respect for the 19th century Pope Leo XIII, we wanted to provide a short biography of this past Pope in context of the history of the Church after the Council of Trent. Quoting our author, John O'Malley, after the Council of Trent, the implementation of the decrees of Trent became an ongoing part of the Pope's job description. And in our prior reflections, we cover the popes in the Council of Trent to Vatican I, including the papacies of Pope Pius VI and Pope Pius VII, who shepherded the Church both through the French Revolution and Napoleon's reign. Pope Pius IX, who called the First Vatican Council, had to contend with the subsequent revolutions of 1848. And this time the Papal States were lost for good. The council was dissolved when the Papal army was defeated in the Risorgimento, or unification of Italy. Pope Pius IX refused to negotiate with the new government, declaring he was a prisoner of the Vatican. This standoff continued under his successor, Pope Leo XIII, who famously issued the papal encyclical Rerum Novarum on capital and labor that greatly encouraged the development of Catholic social justice, or the preferential option for the poor. Now, after the long and momentous papacy of Pope Leo XIII, the cardinals sought a candidate who would be a pastoral pope. They chose Giuseppe Sarto, who had spent his entire priestly life as a pastor, last serving as Patriarch of Venice. He was from a family of modest means, and for 9 years he served as a priest in a county parish. His formal education was meager. He studied at a seminary in Padua. Our author, John O'Malley, explains, Pope Pius X had never set foot outside Italy. He saw things in terms of black and white. While he was still Patriarch of Venice, he wrote to a friend, "When we speak of the Vicar of Christ, we must not quibble. We must obey. We must not evaluate his judgments or criticize his directions, lest we do injury to Jesus Christ himself. Society is sick. The one hope, the one remedy, is the Pope," and these words ring like an Ultramontanist manifesto. Pope Pius X recognized this inexperience meant he needed wise counsel of Pope, so he appointed the strong-willed Cardinal Raphael Meri del Val as Secretary of State, who negotiated with hostile and anti-clerical governments, including those in France and Portugal. But sometimes this diplomacy was blunt and uncompromising. And the greatest achievement of Pope Pius X was enriching the liturgy and encouraging more lay participation in the liturgy. And the Missal in Breviary was revised and simplified to encourage greater participation. Under his encouragement, the liturgy and Sunday Mass became the center of Catholic piety. The Gregorian chant was encouraged, and more of the Mass, including the Creed and the Gloria, was sung, and congregational singing was encouraged. And the greater lay participation in the liturgy organically led to the translation of Latin prayers in the Mass into English so the parishioners could understand them. But for many, the next logical step was to ask, why not simply recite the prayers in the vernacular language, like English? And this would lead to further liturgical reform in Vatican II. Before the papacy of Pope Pius X, most Catholics received the Eucharist only once or twice a year. More frequent partaking was encouraged so that by the middle of the 20th century, most Catholics received the Eucharist weekly. If you attended morning Mass, you could receive the Eucharist daily. Like his predecessor, he was wary of the modern historical methods of biblical interpretation. So he founded the Pontifical Biblical Institute in Rome, run by the Jesuits, to counter the liberalism of these methods. However, as the years passed, the professors in this school came to terms with these new scholarly methods of interpretation, adopting some of them. Pope Pius X went further than his predecessors in his condemnations of modernity. especially in his encyclical Pacendi Dominici Gregis, or Feeding the Lord's Flock, where he summarized the heresies advanced by the Modernists, who were often critical of the theology of St Thomas Aquinas. O'Malley writes, "The Modernist heresy rests on two false principles: the rejection of metaphysical reason, which led to skepticism regarding rational proofs for God's existence, and the rejection of the supernatural, which led to the idea that Christian doctrine derived solely from religious experience." O'Malley notes that Pope Pius especially rejected the idea that dogma is not only able but ought to evolve and be changed, for at the head of what the Modernists teach is their doctrine of evolution. He regarded modernism not so much as a heresy as the synthesis of all heresies. And how is this encyclical to be implemented and enforced? O'Malley writes, first, greater insistence on the teachings of St. Thomas Aquinas. Second, anybody found showing a love of novelty in history, archaeology, or biblical exegesis was to be excluded from all teaching positions. Third, bishops were to establish a vigilance council, whose function was to inform the bishop of anyone possibly tainted with heresy. Fourth, every 3 years they were required to submit to the Vatican a sworn report on how these provisions were being fulfilled. Now, what exactly was modernism? Which new scientific discoveries were merely new novelties? Did the Catholic Church seek to punish mere curiosity? Was this a papal reign of terror? O'Malley writes, a veritable purge followed, with excommunications, dismissals from office, and banning of books reaching epidemic proportions. Many innocently curious scholars were stigmatized, many careers were ruined, and Catholic intellectual life was throttled through the reign of the next two popes, also named Pius. And the Catholic intellectuals who were forbidden to teach include many of the leading theologians of the Second Vatican Council, including Yves Congar. His landmark book, True and False Reform in the Church, not only was banned by the Vatican, but he was prevented from teaching or publishing after 1954. But it inspired the next pope, Pope John XXIII, to call the Second Vatican Council. And when he did, he appointed Yves Congar to the preparatory theological commission that was planning the council. Another side effect of this silencing of scholars by the pre-Vatican II popes was that subsequently the Catholic Church was reluctant to silence critics of the Church. Hans Kung, an old college friend of Pope Benedict XVI, was only silenced after he repeatedly called press conferences over many years, openly criticizing the Catholic Church, rather than being satisfied with writing his best-selling books. And yes, we conclude that good Catholics are permitted to read the works of Hans Kung. O'Malley concludes, Pope Pius X died on August 20th, 1914, just a few days after World War I broke out. Even those who disagreed with his policies saw him as a man of sincere, even if simplistic, piety. While he was still alive, he was spoken of as a saint. 40 years after his death, in 1954, Pope Pius XII confirmed that opinion by canonizing him. Many years later, in 1970, the breakaway Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre founded the Society of St. Pius X. He especially objected to freedom of religion, religious tolerance, abandonment of the Tridentine Mass, and rejected ecumenism in favor of Catholic exclusivism. Both Pope Paul VI and Pope John Paul II tried to reconcile Lefebvre to the Catholic Church but failed, as he refused to assent to the Vatican II decrees. SSPX priests who were elevated to bishops without the blessings of the Vatican were excommunicated. Lefebvre died from cancer in 1991. Pope Benedict XVI lifted the excommunication of the 4 surviving SSPX bishops, explaining this was due to doctrinal rather than disciplinary reasons. But he did not recognize their canonical status, nor did he recognize the canonical status of the SSPX. And Pope Benedict XVI was embarrassed when it was later revealed that one of these 4 pardoned bishops was a Holocaust denier. Lefebvre also spoke approvingly of the French Vichy regime led by Marshal Pétain that collaborated with the Nazis during World War II, and has been accused of being anti-Semitic. And Dr. Wikipedia has a long list of controversies surrounding SSPX. And we will also reflect on brief biographies of Pope Pius X's successors, Pope Benedict XV and Pope Pius XI, who guided the Catholic Church during the trying times of First World War I and then World War II. We also reflected on David Kircher's biography of the histories of Pope Pius XI and Pope Pius XII, the 2 popes who guided the Catholic Church during the perilous Second World War. This reflection includes details on how Pope Pius XI negotiated the Lateran Treaty with Mussolini. After Pope Francis opened the Vatican archives for the wartime years, David Kurtzer updated his biography and history of Pope Pius XII during the Second World War. And the Second Vatican Council is unimaginable without the experiences of the Catholic Church as it survived World War II. These experiences led it to embrace the American form of democracy and freedom of religion, and to restate the Catholic faith of Trent in a more positive manner, seeking dialogue with all Christians and also with all faith traditions. And plus, in our summary of our reflections on the popes between the Council of Trent and Vatican II, we will reflect on whether these popes prepared the Catholic Church for the Second Vatican Council. Now we'll discuss the sources we use for this video. The Jesuit priest and Professor John O'Malley specialized in the study of the Council of Trent and the First and Second Vatican Councils, as well as this history of all the popes. He's an excellent writer, and his book is geared towards educating the layman on his history. And all his books are easily accessible to laymen, and John O'Malley is one of our favorite authors. Plus, we have a separate reflection of book reviews of the many sources for our reflections on the Councils of Trent, the First Vatican Council, and the Second Vatican Council. The YouTube description includes a link to our PowerPoint script that we uploaded to SlideShare and also our blog. Please support this channel by sharing this video with your friends and by clicking on the like and subscribe buttons and by clicking on the Amazon links to purchase any of the books we discussed, which will earn us a very small affiliate commission. And please consider becoming a patron of our channel. Plus, we will host special discussion groups for our patrons. Plus, you can click on the Meetup or small M icon to participate in our online discussions, where we practice our future YouTube scripts. And please click on the links for other videos that will broaden your knowledge and improve your soul.